Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As the president of the Northern Environment Protection Society, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the inaugural symposium of the Northern Environment Protection Society tonight to discuss the Express Pearl vessel disaster, which is considered as one of the worst environmental disasters in the history of Sri Lanka. This symposium, in line with the objective of the Northern Environment Protection Society. I will show you that slide. Let us see. Okay, as you all are aware that we are a budding organization and our objectives to promote awareness of environmental concerns, issues and problems, to bridge the communication and information gaps between the scientific and local communities, and to enhance the knowledge and skills of the students interested in environmental issues confronting Northern Province, the country Sri Lanka, and the world, the global issues as well. So though we have started with the symposium today, we still have a long way to go. With your support, I am confident that we can move forward and will soon register the Northern Environment Protection Society under the company law, and we can conduct activities frequently. Actually, we couldn't start much earlier, although we planned much earlier due to the COVID crisis. So today, we have invited two eminent speakers from Colombo. I would like to extend special welcome to them. Our first speaker is Dr. K. Arulananthan, BSc Zoology, MSc Marine Geology, MSc Physical Oceanography, and PhD in Oceanography. He is a chief scientist at NARA, the National Aquatic Resources Research and Development Agency. He is the editor-in-chief of the Journal of National Aquatic Resources Research and Development. And he has got more than 30 publications. His research interest included coastal dynamics, dynamics of estuaries and lagoons, water exchange and heat budget of tropical lagoons, ocean processes, climate change and its impact on environmental monitoring. I am also proud to introduce Dr. Arulananthan as a fellow Hartleyite, a student from Coimbatore Hartley College. Let us now welcome Dr. Arulananthan, and over to you, Dr. Arulananthan.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Murali. Can I share the screen?
Yeah, you are open to share.
Somebody already shared, Dr. Murali, the screen. Can I?
Is it? Can you share? Already, I have.
Viragati Murugananthan's screen is there, so he has to stop that.
I have to stop that. Wait.
Now you can share.
Okay, we can see that. Yeah. Go to the full screen.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Murali. And I am pleased that you had given an opportunity to me to share some thoughts and some insight into the Express Pearl vessel disaster. Also, I am very pleased that for having or forming a protection society for the environment. The environment which was given to our forefathers and the past generation to enjoy the benefits of the environment had to be passed to the future generation by us without damaging, and we have the bound duty of protecting it. So I am very pleased that there's an initiative to form a Northern Environment Protection Society. Also, here I will start with some background of this incident. Of this, as you said, this is one of the worst disaster, marine disaster that we had in around our water. Why it all happens in our water? There are a lot of conspiracy theories, and why is it happened? There are some reason why it's happened. That's because of our geographical locations and oceanographical location. So I will take this opportunity to go beyond little bit on the background of our location, and then come quickly back to the incident itself. So in geographically, we are on a major shipping route, and that's between the Southeast Asia, where from the Malacca Strait, the Pacific is connected to the Indian Ocean. And we are at the center of the Northern Indian Ocean. So that passes through the major shipping route between the Southeast Asia and the Middle East, where most of the fuel supplies are there. So for the whole world, the fuel supplies from that Middle East, yes. And also today, most of the trade through transport of these materials are from this shipping. And more than 300 ships goes past our southern tip of Sri Lanka. So we are on the major shipping route. And the accidents are very common. I mean, there are about 3,500 accidents, or a little more than that, per year recorded. So if you see, there every day, you can see 1 or 2 accidents happening all over there. So in fact, is that accidents are increasing in globally? Yes, it was increasing until 2014. But then it is gradually getting a stabilized position, that is about 3,500 shipping related casualties or incidents related globally. So that is actually, in fact, almost the amount of people killed on road accident in our country. Actually, about 8-9 people die on road every day because of the road accident. So nowadays, even we don't count the numbers, how many of them died in a day, but in annually we will say that it's about 3,000 not people died on road accident in Sri Lanka. So similarly, being a major shipping route, we are prone to accidents. Although we have a lot of advantages, economical benefits, and we are one of the best shipping hub in the Northern Indian Ocean after Singapore and also Dubai. And we are now trying to be the first heavy ship, the hub of the marine hub, where we are handling the most amount of cargoes per year. So the incidents in the marine disasters, if you look around Sri Lanka, there are quite a few incidents, shipping accidents around Sri Lanka. But if you see that during the 2019, 2020, 2021, there are almost 1 shipping accidents per year. So though globally it seems that it is going down, but in around Sri Lanka it seems to going up. That's also, maybe I'm not an expert on this maritime traffic, but we may not hear that 2019 we have put up a 18-meter deep water jetty or a terminal. So now we are able to attract the deep sea shipping, deep sea ships. Most of these in the Northern Indian Ocean doesn't have that 18 meters of water so that nowadays the ships are becoming bigger and they are having a bigger, deeper draft, so they are able to access our harbor. So we are proud to be the one of the deepest water harbor in the Indian Ocean. So also in the oceanographically, we are in a position in between the Arabian Sea on the left side, which is slightly hypersaline and with the different water masses running through the dry area. While on the west, we have the Bay of Bengal with a lot of rivers, Brahmaputras, Gangas, Ravatis, and all the rivers. So we have two different contrasting water masses on the either side of the Indian Ocean. On the Northern Indian Ocean. One on the Bay of Bengal, very dry area, the very wet area. On the other side, the Arabian Sea. So these two exchanges via the southern tip of Sri Lanka. They exchange the water, they exchange, when you exchange the water, they exchange the heat and they exchange pollutants or litters, debris and all that. So it is also. And also, we being in the Indian Ocean, in the Indian Ocean is very unique. The other two, Atlantic and Pacific, has a northern opening as to the Arctic and the southern opening to the Antarctic. But here, the Indian Ocean has a northern side is not open to the Arctic because we have the landmass, Indian subcontinent and all that land masses. So the water or the will not be able to exchange its heat or Arctic. Unlike the other two oceans, they have exchanged these waters with Arctic and Antarctic or to the polar oceans. So this makes our ocean very unique. The Indian Ocean is unique in the sense that they are more warmed up. The ocean warming is much higher rate in the Indian Ocean than in the Atlantic and Pacific. Because of the Pacific and the Atlantic, as I said, they may able to exchange the water with the polar cooler water. But here, the uniqueness because of the landmass on the northern side, the water is not able to exchange. So it accumulates the heats and it getting heated up. And similarly, the sea level rise and also the pollutants. Even the pollutants are not able to escape. They are trapped in the northern Indian Ocean. So this uniqueness create a monsoon in the Indian Ocean. We don't have the monsoon in the Atlantic or Pacific. It is only unique for us. So we have a reversing wind, one northeast monsoon coming from the Indian landmass and the southwest monsoon blowing from the open Indian Ocean. So similar to the reversing of wind, the coastal currents also reverses. So during the northeast monsoon, the ocean water currents flows around the Indian east coast and goes around the southern Sri Lanka and goes into the Bay of Bengal. Sorry, the other way around. Travels from the Bay of Bengal along the eastern coast and goes into the Arabian Sea. During the southwest monsoon, when the current wind changes its direction, the current also reverses. So this happens where then the Arabian Sea water flows along the western coast of India and goes around the southern tip of Sri Lanka and enters into the Bay of Bengal. So you could see that this is a channel of water flowing in between the Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea. So in fact, if you go around this area in the Jaffna Peninsula area, in the northern area, and if you walk around the Thaliyadi, Maradangani, the Chundikulam Chale area, on the beach, you will find a lot of plastics, juice bottles and used packages, plastic packages and used plastic bottles. If you pick them up and read it, you will find it they are made in Myanmar or Thailand or Bangladesh or India. So the thing is that they didn't bring and dump on our coast. In fact, they dumped these plastic pollutants in their coast, but these currents take away from their country, travel through the boundaries of these continents and reaches our coast. So you would see during the northeast monsoon, if you even up to the Chale and Mullaitivu area on the beaches, you will find a lot of plastic materials made in the Far East, Southeast Asian countries. Similarly, on the west coast, during the southwest monsoon, if you would see that during the southwest monsoon in May-June period, on the Chilau, Puttalam, Gulf of Mannar and Gulf of Mannar coast, you will find clinical waste, kitchen waste, all plastic waste. From Kerala, Karnataka, Bombay, and made in Bombay and all that. So they are all washed and brought into the west coast. So in fact, a few years ago, the Nature has published a paper saying that Sri Lankan waters has the 5th highest plastic pollutant plastic pollutant in the coastal waters. The other 4 before us are the big countries with a high population. But though we are being a very small nation, we are the 5th largest pollutant content in our coastal waters. So this is not only because we all dumped this plastic, but it all came from because of our geographical and oceanographic location. This all comes into our water. And what happened to now, if I come to what happened to the express pearl, in fact, the express pearl is a feeder vessel. When you say feeder vessel, they run from one place to one place, point to point in a circular routine. Like the bus from the point P goes to Jaffna, and then it goes back to point P2, and then goes back to Jaffna. So in between, on its way, it pick up some passengers in Nelledi or Karanavai or somewhere and drop some passengers. Similarly, this is a feeder vessel. The express pearl is a feeder vessel. So it started from the Malaysia, Singapore, and it is supposed to run through Dubai, Qatar, and Indian Gujarat, Colombo, and then go back to Malaysia, Singapore, and then again it goes take the same route. In between its route, it is expected to take containers, load some containers, and discharge some containers in different ports during its the round route. So in fact, the ship has gone to Dubai and loaded some chemicals, quite a lot of chemicals. There are about 45 different types of chemicals, and then went to Qatar. There it has loaded these petrochemical products like resins and pellets and all that. But in between, when it started from the Dubai, it found some nitric acid leaking from some containers. So they are in the containers, not in the containers actually, they are some sort of round containers. We might have seen that when the gas is transported on land route, they have a round container. So they were in the containers. But unfortunately, one of them leaking, and yes, the nitric acid, when it leaks, it smokes. But when it comes to contact with the water, it get fire, it start burning. So it went to Qatar and then went to Gujarat, Kasar harbor. And then it was scheduled to come to Colombo and then go to Singapore, Malaysia and Singapore. So then there was the fire is, the smoke is noticed, and then the ship captain requested assistance from the harbors nearby. That is particularly to the harbor in Qatar and Gujarat. But the harbors, they didn't have the facilities to handle these chemicals. That's what they were told. So in fact, the handling of these chemicals is risky, and it has to be kept safely. But it is only a few harbors in the world has that capacity. One of them is we are to be proud that Sri Lanka has that capacity. So the ship from the Hazare in Gujarat, it traveled to Colombo, and it reaches our waters on May 19th, and it was anchored off Pamudugama in Negombo at about 7 to 8 kilometers. So it is normally the harbor is congested. So there was some, this is a deep water harbor and a big ship. So it has to go to the Colombo International Container Terminal that is having a 18-meter depth, and which also have the facilities for the safe keeping of this handling of chemicals. So it was waiting for the outside and to get discharge its cargo, and also it is expected that it is discharge about 500 containers is to be discharged at Colombo, and also to load some few containers and then to continue the travel. When it was waiting to get a berth, there was a fire on May 20th. It is only on the exact day the southwest monsoon formed in the Andaman Nicobar and touched the southern coast. So the monsoon is also traveling, and the ship is also traveling on the same, arrived on the almost same day. Southwest monsoon is supposed to be very rough weather conditions. So also it is at that time there was a cyclone which was passing through the Bay of Bengal towards north of Bay of Bengal, and that was making this sea very rough and difficult to handle. So in fact, the ship 20th it reaches, and there was a smoke, and with this 25th, there was an explosion on the ship, and there were a lot of firefighting goes on with two subdues before blast, and it was believed that it was under control, and then on 25th, it got there was a big blast, and that is on the day the southwest monsoon was passing through the Colombo, and it was very hard to handle the situation over there. So now the accident is history, and now let me talk a little about pollutants, what we are left with. There are chemicals, more than 45 types of chemicals, and the plastic, you name it. You have the pellets of the low density nurdles, or the plastic where you make the shopping bags and things like that, for the soft plastic and hard plastic, where you make this, and resins where you make the hard, heavy plastic, and quite a lot. In addition to that, it had cement, urea, and all. So if the ship is a dangerous cargo ship on the MARPOL classification. So there are a lot of, and also there's a burner oil that it has about more than little more than 300 metric tons of oil. That is for the function of these engines, or for it. So actually the oil is limited in the bunker, or the furnace oil, or the crude oil. It is very thick and hard. And it has quite a lot of potential to damage if it is leaked out. And I mean, so the crude oil also there. And all these, in addition, there are some even food items like containers of prawns and contain a lot of chickens, clothes. So there are quite a lot of items. So this all can create an algal bloom in that area, because the nutrients are high, and they, when the nutrient high, there are these microorganisms called the plankton, which like grass, the primary, for the land, it is like a grass. The primary produces the grass on the land. Similarly, we have a plankton. It's a microorganism you can see only through the microscope. These are the primary producers, and these are eaten by the small fish, and then the small fishes are eaten by. So this is in the food web. These are the primary producers. So there are some plankton toxic. And if some dinoflagellates, they can be toxic, and it can create some mass mortality or some impact on the biota in the area. So, as I said, there are a lot of chemical pollution, chemical on the containers, but we are talking a lot about this nitric acid. There are about 28 or 25 metric tons of nitric acid. It's not a matter. In fact, it's not an issue with the nitric acid. The reason, the first day when it was burning, we have seen that it is the orange smoke going out. So it is purely nitric acid, it is burning it out. And also when it is discharged into the water, or if there is a left without burning, then the seawater is slightly alkaline. So they react it, and actually it is classified as a non-pollutant in marine environment. If you look on this dangerous cargo, international dangerous cargo port, it is but there are some methanols and some other lead, copper, and there are quite a few liquid in form and semi-liquid form, also solid form. There are quite a lot of chemicals there on that. So if you say it is not the nitric acid that is the problem is we really do not know what are the chemicals, are they all burn out, what they left out, and if those chemicals are they reacted with the one chemical with the another, and what how much is left, and how much is submerged is still in the water, and how much it is leaking. So we don't know the quality, quantity, quality. Also we don't know. So here we run up a model which indicates that they can, if it is an unlimited, it is there are an assumption that is an unlimited chemicals are still left based on this current and surface current pattern and the wind and wave, how far it can spread. It is a numerical modeling based on. In that, based on that, what we have done that the first we immediately made a fishing ban in a selected zone. The first one, we didn't have any data or even the modeling. Now the data on the water, sediments, and the fish tissue and a biota, all are now started coming. But when the incidents happen and when we realize that there are chemicals, based on the precautionary principle, immediately a fish ban was imposed from from the Kochikade on the north to Panandura and beyond the sea, about 16 kilometers to, in the sea. So that constituted about 450 square kilometers area totally banned for fishing. That is based on the precautionary principle. And when we, with the incoming data and modeling results and all that, now we have assessed the potential area impacted by this chemical. And we have come to a understanding that this chemical goes up to about Kapungoda in Negombo area on the north and at about Ratmalan in the south, but they may have far spread towards offshore. So a new fishing ban based on the data and numerical modeling is currently imposed. So I am saying this because the chemical impact. So in this area, the fishing ban is enforced. So now the fish is in the market are either caught in other areas, which or in other not outside of this banned area. So the fish now in the market are not caught in the area which is assessed as an area where we can have the chemical impact. So the fish currently at the market is safe for consumption. And then the plastic pollution. The plastic pollution, I already said that we are the fifth largest plastic content in our water. And every year, about 8 million tons of plastics in globally 8 million metric ton chemical is discharged, dumped in our ocean globally, 8 million. So here we are talking about 300 or a few hundred metric ton of plastic. So we are living with plastic and abusing the plastic, and even it is not the problem on the ocean, but it is in the problem on the even in the land. When you travel on the north in many places, even you can see these plastic polythene bags are all over the trees, driven by this wind and all that. So plastic, but that is a problem. But with the plastic, the problem is that fish may take it, consume it, or they maybe get entangled in their gill, or that is their respiratory organ, or they are stuck in the intestine or where the ingestion during the ingestion. So the fish which directly eat, there may be a few or a very few death may happen because of the plastic. Even in this, we have seen this cow or elephants in Manambuti area or in the deer in the Trincomalee temple area, eats polythene and they also die. So we are abusing. So it is not the problem very targeted to this one. It is a problem we all have to handle it. But the plastic itself is not toxic. So if we, when we cook a fish, we remove the gills and or even the intestine or food things. So they were removed and they can be cooked and eaten. So the problem with the plastic is here. Where does it go? Where does it ends up? That is an issue here. The accident happened in a place where it it is a place where, at the Negombo area, where the current deviate and travel to the north as well as the south. So in fact, it is a nodal point where the current flows on both directions. In fact, if the accident has taken place further north, the plastic all might have gone up to only to the north, or even if it is happened in the further south, let's say in Banandura, all the plastic would have gone to the south. But unfortunately, it had happened in the sober was at a place. So it goes both in the north and south at a speed of 20 to 25 kilometers per day. So it goes into the Gulf of Mannar North and expected to end in the Porkside and then escape into the Bay of Bengal. And similarly on the southern plastic, which move on the southern region and goes into the Bay of Bengal and also into the Arabian Sea. And they are going to be there for 400, 500 years. And during that period, they may keep on absorbing toxic substances. And when they are for a long 100 of years, they absorb the toxic substances and then it becomes an issue. So there's an oil pollution. There is not a much an oil pollution because fortunately when the estimate or assessment says that it was burning so heavily, the bunker oil would have been burned out. But still there are some leakages of oil like substances that may be the this ship is also carrying a lot of lubricants. So maybe the lubricants on the ship deck, maybe it is washing away from the water, these waves and things that. So there are some oil going on that, and our observation says that yes, there are at the beginning there are quite a big patch of oil on the surface, but now it has been shrinking because of natural decay of that. And the other thing is the algal bloom. As I said, then when there are lot of nutrients, lot of materials, these microorganisms explode, and then some of them are very toxic, and then they can cause some mortality. And also I would like to touch, my time is almost over, but before that I would like to make this slide also. This is a research article appeared a few years ago. They have what done is in the Rekawa area, that is in the southern part of Sri Lanka. After the turtles come there for laying eggs, and then they go back to their feeding areas. So they feed in an area and they come for laying eggs in a different area. So the feeding area is Gulf of Mannar and the Gulf of Mannar area, where you get a lot of biodiversity and very rich productivity area, Gulf of Mannar area, and also on the Karnataka coast on India, and also the Lakshadweep Islands. That is a feeding area. They all come to the southern coast of Sri Lanka. We have a very good, well known for the beaches for laying eggs. And here the experiment is, they have tagged these 10 turtles and released them. So they return via the southern western coast of Sri Lanka, very along the via the area the accident has taken place. And actually about for 3 or 4 of them gone to the Gulf of Mannar, and 2 of them went to Karnataka, Koso, and 3 of them went to Lakshadweep. So out of the 10, 7 of them, they go from along the west coast via the accident area and then go to the Gulf of Mannar. So unfortunately, this is also the season when they migrate from their feeding area in Gulf of Mannar and Karnataka coast in India to the Rekawa. The turtles are scavengers. I mean, they are very slow moving, so they will not be able to chase the prey and catch them. So they are very slow. So what they do is they are scavengers, try to eat floating debris and litters, also dead fish and things like that. So there is a possibility that they are on the way scavenging on these, some of these debris is still around that area. The debris are maybe some toxic. That is a theory, what I am formulating. There's no scientific proof, then still, and the samples are, the cut content samples are taken and they are sent to the laboratories for cut content analysis to see this toxicity. So we have ruling out, looking on different theories, but and ruling out one by one, and we also now keen on looking out this possibility also. So as I said, the ingestion of plastic pellets is maybe harmful to the fish, but it is not toxic. If you clean it and cook it, it is no issue. And so how we are going to restore, what we are going to do with this? Now what we are doing is assessing the ecological impacts to the biodiversity, to this other organism like fish and associated species. And also we are cleaning these beaches with all plastic, whatever comes, we immediately clean that. There is a concerted effort going on. Otherwise, the plastic may remain on the beach, and when the wind, the current changes, the wave become stronger, they may be again from the beach taken into the sea, and then it started moving with the water. So whenever it comes to the coast, it has to be quickly cleaned up. And also there are submerged containers in the water, and we have done quite a small area for the site and fauna survey, and we found in a small area there are 40 objects, debris submerged in the water, and at least 8 or 10 of them are containers. So we are now got assistance of foreign nations to map out this area and identify the debris or containers submerged. And then we have the automatic cameras, cameras fixed with automatic vehicles has to be sent, and to the containers have to be identified, and then they have to be hauled out and removed from this environment until we remove these debris from this area and identify what they are containing, and we appropriately dispose. We will having an environmental issue in this demarcated area, which is about 500 square kilometers, which is from the Kapunggoda in the Nikombu area to Ratmalane area. So this is my situation. Thank you for my time. I have taken 5 minutes, 6 minutes more. Thank you, Dr. Murali.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for that comprehensive overview, giving a very good idea of what happened and elaborate with all the vivid pictures. And now our next speaker, Dr. Sampath Seneviratne, with PhD in evolutionary ecology. He is a senior lecturer at the Department of Zoology and Environmental Sciences of the University of Colombo. He is a well-known researcher with more than 100 publications. He was the president of Field Ornithology Group of Sri Lanka in 2020, and he is a real expert in ornithology. In fact, my first contact with Dr. Sampath was to identify a bird from my wildlife photo. So let us now welcome Dr. Sampath Seneviratne, and over to you, Dr. Sampath.
Okay, thank you very much. You can hear me okay, Dr.
Yeah,
Murali?
we can hear you, yeah.
Okay, all right. And thank you for inviting me, and I wish you all the best for the Northern Environment Protection Society. And yes, these days it's tough, but on the other hand, it's in a way an opportunity and also to the future is very in a way bleak, but at the same time very promising, because more and more people are aware now the dangers and then the damage that we do, and its danger to our future. So I think all concerned citizens of all walks of life has a responsibility, and so I wish you all the best, Dr. Murali and the group, for what you do. And yeah, so as Dr. Arul very nicely and quite extensively covered the background, I will share my screen. I'm not going to to have a presentation, but I will have one slide as my background, and I will use that to kind of discuss this effect of. Give me a second. I'm just removing some of the information coming into the screen. Okay, yeah. So I'll be talking about Dr. Murali had asked me to talk about the effects of animals and plants, or the fauna and flora by this particular accident. And Dr. Arul had already very nicely illustrated the backdrop of this, and also the stage and our past, present, and what would be the future. I have to just give you a kind of a 1 minute introduction to show what my experiences are. I was born in Gaul, and brought up in the southern part of Sri Lanka. But even though when I'm in my undergraduate years, even in late 1990s and early 2000, I traveled a bit in the north and the parts of India. And then I did my PhD in the Arctic, in Alaskan Arctic, on marine birds, seabirds in particular. But I got some money from one of the biggest maritime accidents in the history of the modern history, which is called Exxon Valdez accident in Alaska. The Exxon Valdez happened in the 1980s, and it's oil spill, and estimated millions of species, millions of individuals, mostly seabirds and marine mammals, died in this process. So the company had to give a huge, the American government sued the company, and some of the money went into long-term research and understanding the maritime environment in the North Pacific. So some of the money that poured into that long-term understanding, monitoring, and of the northern Arctic environment actually came to me also to do my PhD. So I have in a way, in my training, yes, I got my up to my university education, I was funded by the people of Sri Lanka, and then I was partly funded by this sort of an accident in an ironically, but this is after 20 years of that accident. But then then after I was involved with some of the monitoring of oil spills and maritime related matters in Aleutian Islands in the Alaska, and then also in the Labrador in the eastern Canada, and St. John's, Newfoundland, and so on. So I have some experience in maritime accidents, distress ships, and I myself work in a research vessel in Alaska, 5 summers to do my research in the Western Aleutian Islands. So anyway, so I've seen thousands of animals, especially birds and mammals, dying, not dead, dying along the coast. Sometimes after oil spills, I've done some oil, like, cleaning of birds and mammals in these disasters. And then this happened. So before this, for the past 5 years or so, I've been heavily involved with research in MANA, especially in the Ramas Bridge area, and then Wankale, Veditalatiu, that area. We are doing satellite tagging of migratory birds along the Central Asian flyway to monitor their movements within Sri Lanka, especially in the northern sector, and into the Arctic, all the way to the Arctic, using satellite tags. And also we do some breeding bird surveys and coastal surveys for birds, mostly in the Mana region. So and then came the accident, Express Pearl. So based on my previous experience and also the prediction that it could have oil in it, so we were there on the scene after about 3 days after the real, the burning started. And actually, before a week ago, came the Yas cyclone. Yas cyclone, I will get my laser pointer. Okay, so the Yas cyclone actually basically blew, if you can see my laser pointer, it blew basically wind from the south western Indian Ocean, somewhere like this, like that, along this way and into the western shore. And then the low pressure system started somewhere here and slowly moved up to here. And by the time the ship started to burn in about 26th to 27th June, so May, it was the epicenter of the Yas was somewhere where my cursor right now is. So that low pressure system, it started to become very powerful cyclone. One of the most powerful cyclones happened over the recent few years. So this the wind started to blow really heavy, and as a seabird person interested in seabirds, we started to monitor this cyclone from Mount Lebanon, Panadura, and in Bambalapiti areas, because that was the area where this really heavy southwestern wind comes and hit the island. And the idea is that when that happened, the birds that are naturally in the very deeper areas, like pelagic areas, tend to come and sometimes they find shelter in these relatively protected shores in our shelf break, or the about 10 nautical miles to the shore kind of area, or they might accidentally blow into the coastal belt because of this heavy wind. Normally these birds live in, the birds that we were interested are normally living in these areas. They sometimes migrate from the Arabian Sea in this area and then south, and then they go to even into Pacific. Some of the species go like that. Some might go to the Eastern Indian Ocean. Some might go to the Bay of Bengal, and then, but mostly they use 30 to 100 nautical miles away from the coast. They use the shelf break, and this, as you can see, these algal plumes, they use these rich kind of turbulent oceans for feeding, because the fish uses that, and so that these fish eaters, they eat squids and all, they use that as well. So you get the advantage of this upwelling of the shelf break in this area, and also they use this as a kind of the same way this ships use in their shipping route. They use this as a kind of a landmark. But since the Yas was here, the birds were closer to our shelf. We were monitoring it even before the accident starts. And after about 2-3 days passed, we got to know the accident. There is a distress ship in the system, and some international community from that people who are interested in marine pollution accidents and all also alert us about this. So myself and few others, we continue to monitor the seabirds in this area, because normally globally when there's a accident, maritime accident, pelagic birds, not the terns or the birds that you normally see on land. These pelagic birds are the birds that like albatrosses, shearwaters, petrels, and then gannets, boobies, tropic birds, frigate birds. Those are the species that normally don't come to land except for breeding. They live in the deep ocean, hovering above the oceans like hovercrafts, and basically spend entire time on water and then come to land only for breeding. So those birds are vulnerable for oil spills, because they go from they travel hundreds and sometimes thousands of kilometers from one productive patch to another productive patch, because the deep ocean or the open ocean we call pelagic zone of the ocean is like a desert, where all the nutrients and the productivity lies close to the shelf break, because the light penetrates deep into the ocean, and all these algal blooms and most of the productive fish schools are found in the sheltered, these kind of slightly shallower areas, or coral reefs, mangroves, and so on. But the deep water is mostly has nutrients in the deep, so the above surface area doesn't have much, except in patches. Sometimes you can see these large schools of fish, and like it's patchy, so they go from one productive patch to another, and they have sensors to that, and they go after hydrocarbons like oils, deposited by debris, like fish, dying fish, dead fish, dead whales, squids, and other invertebrates, and so on. So the oil means on water in the pelagic zone is rich source of food. But when you have a distressed ship as a like having a leaking oil into the surface, oil is lighter than water, so it floats. And these oils contain a lot of toxins. They are not meant for consumption by any means, as food. And also they even though they are hydrocarbons, they contain lots of other impurities that are highly toxic. The gut epithelium could collapse, liver could, have serious problems when they try to process it, and the toxins could, in the process of detoxification. And then there are hydrophobic feathers. If the oil touches the feather, it gets, basically get wet, and then their hydrophobic nature goes off. So the birds, when they try to sit on water, they get hypothermia, because the water touches the body. Otherwise, the water doesn't touch the body, and then they get either hypothermia or they get wet and drown. So that's how normally thousands and thousands, sometimes millions of birds and mammals could die in this sort of accidents. But so we started after the stage where the ship started to burn like this, like a torch, and like a lot of like ash and smoke, and then by about 28th of May, it was really badly burning. So we started to do our beach bird surveys or beach surveys from Colombo Fort, somewhere in there's a harbor, I forgot its name, but anyway, south of Pamanugama, about 7 kilometers south of Pamanugama, all the way to the mouth of the Negombo Lagoon, a 20-kilometer stretch. We started to monitor. We've done several surveys from 28th of May, and then again 2 days after, and so on, to see whether the impact, because we expected, because it was blowing directly from the from the ship to the shore. So we expected if there's dying birds and dying other animals, we will see a lot of them. We saw lots of plastic nurdles, but we saw only 2 dead seabirds. None of them falls into that true pelagic bird category. We saw only 2 pelagic terns, a bridal tern and a sooty tern. And but we were not sure. We dissected it. It had the signs of starvation, and they were both were subadults. So the possibility is that they were actually caught in the low pressure system and died in that shore, not as a direct exposure to the chemicals or anything. But anyway, then we didn't see any, like in the entire 20-kilometer stretch of 3 times, surveying it 3 times, we had, in the beginning, we had only 2 seabirds and less than 10 fish. But then came slowly, as June, the first week of June, passes, there were 1 or 2 turtles started to show up. And then, so yesterday, this was in the social media, this was done by Daily Mirror, that there were lots of turtles. In fact, in the unconfirmed reports, this is an unconfirmed report in my, I just got this from off the social media, but some of the reports, again unconfirmed, stated that about 130 or so carcasses of turtles, including leatherback turtle, considered the largest of all marine turtles and the rarest of marine turtles that we get in our ocean. And then the several hawksbill turtles, which is critically endangered globally. And then about 20 or so green turtles, again endangered. And majority of the turtles were by other records that I've seen in relatively reliable sources indicates that olive ridley turtles are the majority of the dead turtles comprise of. And then there was a blue whale carcass in the northwestern shore somewhere here. And then in one of the surveys that we've done last week, we had a dead spinner dolphin in near Pamunugama, so right next to the actual accident site. And then there were records of about 20 or so cetaceans, dolphins, and a pygmy killer whale, several species of dolphins, spinner dolphin, humpback dolphin, and bottlenose dolphins. And then this, according to this particular list, there's a dugong also there in the list. But anyway, so there's a substantial accumulation of kind of relatively adult, large marine reptiles, the turtles and the marine mammals. And then few records of fish, but not in large scale. In some of our surveys, we also saw floating dead fish on the water where crows go and try to get. But the problem, okay, so that was we've seen. So it's definitely a murder scene. As somebody, a biologist who worked in the marine ocean environments in North Pacific, North Atlantic, and in Indian Ocean. In North Atlantic and North Pacific, I was in the Arctic and cold waters. Especially the Labrador Current is very cold, minus almost below 0. And then even though I'm in 49 to 55 latitudes, it was much colder because of the Labrador Current, and in the Pacific I was in much higher latitudes, but the Gulf Current that comes from the southern southwestern part of North America actually warms the ocean, so it is relatively warmer than the eastern side of Atlantic. And then in Indian Ocean it's much warmer, and I have some experience, and based on all this, I can say that this is murder. This is this is active. Something is killing these animals. These animals are not exhausted by age. It doesn't look like they've been, they should live another, decades or more, because most of the marine, these sort of turtles and whales and all, they are long lived. They live like over 100 years. And what we are seeing is subadults and mature ones dying. And for some of these turtles, at least, they might have lived 100 years. They must have seen, they might have born way before the plastic era that we created after the Second World War. So they were probably born in not last century, the century before, and they have seen lots of like both world wars. They must have seen the unrest in the north. They must have seen all these, what had happened to our oceans over the past 50 years, the big boom of this chemical and related industries, and still they continue to live, and then they died. Why? So it's a murder scene. The problem is, the murderer is out there still. We don't know. And the question is that, do we want to catch somebody and, blame that person or label that person or entity as the murderer and wash our hands and say that we found the murderer, we caught it, and now the murderer is paying the price for it? Or do we want to actually find the murderer? Because the danger of not catching the actual murderer in this context, or in any context, if it is a murder scene, but putting some blame to somebody and put that person behind bars, there's two problems there. If you put somebody, random person behind bars, labeling that person the murderer of the culprit, or the actual the murderer of that murder scene, one problem is that somebody might not be if that person is not the murderer, then we are putting an innocent person behind bars. That person may not be the innocent by behavior and by nature, but still that person had not done that crime. And the bigger danger is that the real criminal is out in the society in an actual murder scene. So one should not do that, because you will risk everybody else's lives, because the real murderer might be out in the society. So similarly, in this ecocide, this is environmental murder. The marine environment had been brutally abused, partly by this ship and partly maybe from other things. I'm going to talk about it in a second. We need to find the real culprit. Who that real culprit is. Is that the ship or something else? By looking at and doing extensive literature review with some of my students are working on the literature review and contacting the experts in the global experts. Some of them are my teachers, my colleagues in the north and in south. And what we are seeing is that the picture is very complicated. One problem is those who done maritime surveys in Sri Lanka before, including myself, in the beach animal surveys done before in Sri Lanka before the accident, are a bit hesitant to take these numbers as it is. The reason is that when you do beach surveys in Mana, in Veditalathil, in Panadura, in Hambantota, in Chundikulam area along the neck of Jaffna, from north of Ayakachi, and then along the Chundikulam, that coast all the way to that mouth where the broken bridges, about 20 kilometers. When you do that, you see lots of dead turtles, few dolphins. So the people who have done such, and then I know few people who done this in Kalpitia, in somebody yesterday commented that in Yala area, they all say, no, these numbers has to be carefully analyzed, because now more and more people go into the beach and look for dead animals, and every single dead animal nowadays get reported. So this is not unnatural, this is something natural, but because so many people are now aware about the dead animals, so they get reported. Because of that, these numbers are not unnatural. That's one side of the problem. Are we seeing something happening a long time, like for a long time now, and this because of the ship, now everybody is aware of it? And is it something even bigger? Because when you go to Vilpattu, I've seen over 15 adult dead turtles in Vilpattu show once upon a time. And yesterday, Dilsiri Valikala, somebody who do kite surfing and all, mentioned, and I met him many times, and he mentioned this before to me as well, that he released like 7, 8, turtles at times at one go in the stranded in nets and all. So these numbers are, are they natural? Are these numbers a fact, actually happening because of the ship, or that we are seeing dead animals all the time, but now it gets reported and we get an inflated number? If that's the case, what's the cause for that? Can we just say that this ship pollute our oceans and otherwise our oceans are clean? And then another problem. Ship actually dumped a lot of stuff, especially these plastic, which would cause microplastics, contribute to the problem of microplastics, and it would contaminate the ship food web in the marine environment. And we are one of the top consumers of in the food web, where plankton, maritime plankton, and microinvertebrates are in the bottom, and then small fish. And then larger invertebrates are in the next stage, and then the medium-sized fish and squids and such invertebrates are in the middle, and then the large fish, sharks, on the top, and then seabirds, marine mammals, and very large sharks and very large tuna and all are in the top, and we eat all of them, even above that. So all the chemicals that we dump in this ocean, microplastic, would come into us through this system. So the ships, like these tons of some 10 million nurdles or so, no, sorry, some number, would actually contribute to this problem. But the problem is, we are, as Dr. Arul said, we are one of the largest polluters of the maritime system. And in Colombo, like, the sewage system in Colombo dumped in Vallipuranathan, 3 kilometers off Vallipuranathan. And that has been happening for the past 20, 30 or 50 years. And people were okay with it. And suddenly they are really upset about the ship. But, and then all the silly bags, the grocery bags, all the plastic water bottles, all the plastic toys, plastic kitchenware, plastic brooms, umbrellas, bags, shoes, clothing, rain gear, everything eventually goes into the marine and water aquatic environments and break into microplastics. So we are polluting this. And then other problems like maritime war exercises, weapon testing, drilling for oil, and explorations for other minerals. They are all happening in these our waters. And are all these very clean? Is this only this ship doing it? And are these all these dead animals, if it is not sampling by us, are dying simply because of the ship? It's very difficult to say at this stage. Autopsies are happening, but the problem with autopsies, most of these carcasses come in as decomposed carcasses. I'll come back to that in a second. So all this has to be looked into. And then, especially in the northern waters, since I'm talking to the Northern Environment Protection Society, the use of dynamite in for fishing is a menace. And it's like using a bomb to kill fish for fishing. And it is happening heavily in northern environments, from Trinco to Kalpitia, that sector. The use of dynamite for fishing is a huge problem. And when you put a dynamite near a reef, turtles, marine mammals, everything died. And then the fishermen collect whatever the fish that they could collect and come. And the entire environment get blasted. And it is happening daily in Sri Lanka, especially in the northern oceans. So would that causing this deaths? And then on top of that, I was going to say some other problem, the ghost nets. All the nets, fishing nets that actually get dumped into the ocean, like old nets or the broken nets, act as ghost nets and killing mammals, marine mammals and marine turtles, because they have to come to the surface for breathing. Finally, trawlers, the Indian trawler fishing fleet. Bottom trawling is banned in Sri Lanka, but we all know that, especially in the northern fishing community knows that the trawlers, about 2,000 trawlers every night come to Sri Lankan waters and do bottom dredging, bottom trawling. And bottom trawling is it's very bad for turtles and other marine organisms, and that also can kill. So anyway, all these are potential candidates for this problem. And finally, I think I've talked a little bit longer, but I will just finish this with this. At this other hand, normally if a turtle died in the marine environment, it sinks. But then after a few days, when the body started to decompose, it started to float back, and then it drift. And then maybe in warm waters, it decomposes quickly. Because of that, the chances of buoyancy is higher. So it kind of started to float. But then if they reach a shore, then it will be in the shore. But if not, it might decompose and again fall back, fell into pieces and sink back. Animals like give me a second. Animals like marine mammals started to float when they die, and then they can sink depending on the amount of air in the lungs and all, or they might continue to float into the beach, or they might sink. And they could come back again and float depending on the amount of disintegration and decomposition taking place, and the density could drop. So on average, 3 to 30% of dead animals could wash off onto the shore. So what we see, if you see 100 carcasses, that means it could be 300 or even more actually dying, and only a fraction comes into the shore. So whether it is if the ship causing this, or our day-to-day pollution causing this, whatever, something serious is happening in the ocean, and it's great that people are aware now. We need to find the culprit before it gets too late. Okay, I will stop there. Dr. Arul, I can take questions later in the discussion forum. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Sampath Seneviratne, for the excellent presentation and explained things. So, okay, this is now time to call our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Murali Vallipuranathan. He's a consultant community physician attached to Ministry of Health, and he's a visiting lecturer at the Universities of Jaffna and University of Colombo. He was the president of Jaffna Medical Association during 2014 and 15, and he's a champion in environmental issues. His involvement in several environmental issues, mainly in Chunnagam, water pollution exposing the culprits responsible for the pollution finally brought compensation to the affected people. So and he do a lot of environment-related activities and come up with the solutions for that. And I don't want to take much time for podium. So Dr. Murali, over to you.
Thank you for your kind introduction. Now I will talk about the possible effects on humans. So we see that the hazardous material located in the express pearl ship, already a huge list was shown: the nitric acid, ethanol, lead ingots, the heavy metal, dust urea, prill urea, high density and low density polyethylene, epoxy resins, sodium methoxide, caustic soda, and aluminum processing byproducts, raw materials for cosmetics, food items, and 300 tons of bunker oil, which is again toxic with sulfur containing material. So the long-lasting toxic effects can be expected from heavy metals, the lead and other possible metals in these materials, and also the plastics, the pellets form, and also the bisphenol A, which is leaching from the plastics, especially the epoxy resins containing the bisphenol A. I will come into the details subsequently. And if there are any radioactive substances, these all are declared ones, but whether the possibility of any undeclared substances also there. So let us confine ourselves to the declared substances, but we should remember that in the past there have been instances where the substances were not declared fully. So the list so far we have seen is a total of 118 turtles, 17 dolphins, and 4 whales, including large number of fishes. Somebody has asked how much already died, but already my previous speaker, Dr. Sampath, has clearly explained that we see only part of them in the beach. So the actual death count may be much larger. And this is I believe that is an amazing photograph of this plastic pellet pollution, which is called as nurdles. So as explained by Dr. Arul, that when they ingest it, and it blocks the gills and their intestinal system, and they die. And also that immediately after the disaster, our beaches were full of these plastic nurdles, and there were various animals, crustaceans were trying to feed on them. And then I will go to the situation. A study in 2018 globally has found microplastics in 90% of the table salt, where they have collected samples from several countries. So a sample from Indonesia is having a high level of microplastics. And then we see what has happened in Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, we see the microplastics in commercial sea salts was done in a study in December 2020. And they report all the samples had microplastics ranging from 20 to 193 per kilogram. And that is including all the Puttalam, Mammadotte, and various places where they are collecting salt. So that is, we are already consuming microplastics in our table salt. And we still don't know what are the effects of microplastics in human body, although there have been cadaveric tests and postmortems, they have found microplastics within the human organs. Then we see that the various seafood containing microplastics. The largest amount is in the mussels, oysters, and the scallops, which belong to the mollusk. Right? They have found a study in, they have collected a review by York Medical School from 2014 to 2020 and investigated the microplastic levels. And they have found the largest level or highest level of microplastics in the mollusks, clams, mussels, and oysters. And also they have concluded that mollusks collected off the coast of Asia were the most heavily contaminated with microplastics. And the microplastics in the crustacean is little less, and fish also affected, but it is least affected compared to the mollusks and the crustaceans. So this was, I made some personal observation after this. The fifth highest report came in 2010. So 2018, I made some personal visits to the field, and this was a household. In their backyard is the Bolgoda Lake. And this is the collection. Every 2 weeks, they get a vehicle and remove all these, clean all these plastics. But still, again, within 2 weeks, it gets accumulated. So this is what happening in the inland. We are talking about the sea, but within the country, we see the water bodies. The lakes are heavily affected by indiscriminate disposal of plastic materials into the water bodies. So this is again the Pamangada Canal. They use a floating trap, and the floating plastics get trapped, and every day they remove this. This is also again a picture from 2018 where I have personally observed and taken the photographs. So you can see that every day large amount of plastics were entering the water bodies and gradually move into the sea. So that is, we rank as the fifth largest polluter in the world. And this is the study that was reporting in 2010 in selected countries, and China was the leading, and we are in the fifth place. And also that shows the mismanaged plastic waste and the plastic marine debris. And then I am coming to the bisphenol A, which is considered the highly toxic plastic component from leaching from the plastic. So various countries, they have done the daily intake of bisphenol A, although this study is not showing the Sri Lanka. This is what happening. The bisphenol A enter the system, and it can affect the cell DNA and histone, and it leads to several damages. So you can see that from prostate cancer to insulin resistance, I will show in the next picture. So that is the negative effects of bisphenol A. Harmful effects on the nervous system, enhancing the diabetes risk, changing hormonal balance, cell changes, cardiovascular disease, low birth weight, infertility, obesity, and cancers. And at the hormonal level, the 2019 published article shows the effects. The bisphenol A alters several hormones and affect the endocrine function. So you can see that it affects on the hypothalamus level, pituitary gland, and alter the individual glands, functions of individual glands, and that leads to subfertility and hormonal imbalance and various diabetes and thyroid problems and so on. So there was a study done in New Zealand. In 2005, they have taken canned foods from various countries, and they have found that Sri Lankan was the second highest BPA levels for a plastic package of coconut cream, and we are still using a large amount of plastic bottles to carry the food materials, and that can leach the bisphenol A. So what are my recommendations? So we see that the plastics emitted by us is much higher than what is released by the ship disaster. So therefore, we have to concentrate on our own activities. We have to reduce 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle the plastics, and ban BPA containing polycarbonate plastics bottles in food packaging, and as already banned in several countries: USA, Canada, EU, Malaysia, and China. Actually, about 5-6 years back, I was in the expert panel deciding on the feeding bottles, plastic feeding bottles, and I straight away produced that it was banned in the BPA containing the plastics are not used for the feeding bottles. So then they agreed. So, but it is still in general use. A lot of polycarbonate bottles are in circulation, carrying juice and various other products where it can leach the bisphenol A, one of the most dangerous compounds. Then we have to monitor marine foods for heavy metal levels, as we already know that lead goes there, and there may be other heavy metals also, and possibility of the radioactivity and bisphenol A, and also the microplastics. I put the microplastics last because we still don't know the harmful effect of the microplastics. And we have to monitor the salt samples for the presence of microplastics. And also we have to monitor the air pollution levels. There was toxic fumes emitted from the ship for several weeks, and you can see that now. And this was continuing for several weeks. And let us get united to stop this kind of disaster and the consequences, and plan action for mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murali, for an excellent presentation. And I think we have come to a conclusion for the presentation. So I think today, first, I think Dr. Arulananthan discussed about our geographical location and our mainly for our oceanogeographical locations, how it make this disaster more with the deeper water harbor and also our water exchange not possible because of subcontinent. So a lot of geographical and oceanographical reasons are there for its verse. It's maybe a simple one, but and also he explained is Yas also maybe a contributing factor. So and also he explained why this northern sea region is more pollutants, not only with our pollutions from other countries' pollution also. He explained that, and also he sequentially explained the feeder vessels route and its stations there in Gujarat and Oman and things, and then our sequence here. And he finally explained the pollutions through these danger cargo ships. Especially he talked about these chemical pollutions. So that's nitric acid and other pollutions. And also he talked about these food items, they are high nutrient for these planktons, alga. And also he talked about this plastics. So these plastics will go for years and years, and he showed which area will be more polluted with plastics from Nigampur to down south. Again, 25-kilometer stretch, it will be more polluted, and this damage will be there for more than 400 to 500 years. And also he talked about the oil spills and its impact to biota, especially the turtles and other things. And finally, he concluded his talk with how can we restoration, ecological impacts, how can we monitor and cleaning the beach and identifications of the debris and its removal. And they are continuously monitoring the ship through cameras and other modern mechanisms to measure the burden and problems. So அது நான் தமிழ்லையும் ஒரு சொன்ன நல்ல நினைக்கிறேன் எங்களுடைய இந்த பார்ட்டிசிபென்ட்ஸுக்காக. டாக்டர் அருளானந்தன் முதல்ல வந்து உங்களுடைய டிசாஸ்டரை பற்றி காய்ச்சவர். ஏன் இது கூட மோசமாக இருந்ததற்கு எங்களுடைய அமைவிடம், சூழல் அமைவிடமும் கடல்சார் அமைவிடமும் முக்கியமான காரணிகளாகவும் இருந்தது. மேலதிகமான இந்த பாதிப்புக்கு மேலதிகமாக இந்த கடல்சார் புவிசார் அமைவிடமும் ஒரு முக்கியமான காரணம் எங்களுக்கு இந்த பிரச்சனை பூதாகரமாக வருவதற்கு. அதோடு எங்களுடைய இந்த ஆழ்கடல் துறைமுகமாக இருப்பதன் காரணமாகவும் எங்களுடைய துணை கண்டம் மேல் இருக்கபடியால இந்த கடல் நீரோட்டங்கள் ஏனைய சமுத்திரங்களில் இருப்பது போல இருக்க முடியாமல் இருக்கிறதன் காரணமாகவும் எங்களுக்கு இதெல்லாம் சேர்ந்து ஒரு contributing factors for more burden, அதாவது எங்களுக்கு இதை வந்து பேரழிவாக வருவதற்கு துணைக்கிற காரணங்களாக இருந்ததாக நிறைய ஆதாரங்களோட விளங்கப்படுத்தியிருந்தார். அதை தொடர்ந்து அந்த எக்ஸ்பிரஸ் கப்பலுடைய பயணம் எப்படி தொடங்கி சென்றது, அது சென்னும் அதே நேரம் எங்களுக்கு மரத்தால் ஏறி விழுந்தனை மாடேறி மிதித்தது போல யாஸ் புயலும் அதே டிரெக்ஷன்ல வந்திருந்தது. எங்களுக்கு மிகவும் மிகவும் சிக்கலாக இருந்து என்ற பற்றியும் காய்ச்சவர். கடைசியாக இதனால் வரக்கூடிய சூழல் பாதிப்புகள், அதாவது மாசுக்கள் என்ன வேகமாக வரலாம், முக்கியமாக ரசாயன பதார்த்தங்கள் கெமிக்கல் மூலமாக வரக்கூடிய பாதிப்புகள் பற்றியும், பிளாஸ்டிக் பெலட்ஸ் வரக்கூடிய பாதிப்புகள், ஆயில் பங்கர் ஆயில் அங்கே இருக்குது, அந்த ஆயில் கடல்ல கலக்கும் பட்சத்தில் ஏற்படக்கூடிய பாதிப்புகள் மற்றும் அல்காவினால் வரக்கூடிய பாதிப்புகளை பற்றியும் எங்களுக்கு டாக்டர் அருளானந்தன் மிக விளக்கமாக எங்களுக்கு விவரித்திருந்தார். So after that, I think Dr. Sampath Seneviratne discussed well about the creatures, the organs, the live organisms, the plants and animals, in what damages it can cause. Who is the culprit? He shared his experiences with different marine researchers and things. So these pelagic birds, so how they move and how they breed and things. So they usually do these exercises or observations, not with this, with some other cyclone and other storms. So he explained all these things. So, and how these birds killed by, say, in an accident, so these high toxic materials, it take into the oil and it damage their feathers. By that, it's hydrophobic nature lost, and because of that they become hypothermia and wet and die. So he explained well about that, and also he argued in a well manner whether who is the culprit for that, whether we all blame on this ship disaster. Are we contributing more in our day-to-day life? Lot of other modalities we are contributing for sea pollution and damage. So are we? So still we don't have the proof for whether these creatures died because of these things. So, and also finally, Dr. Murali explained about the health impacts and things. So it's now the forum is open for discussion. So you can ask questions for things already. I think some questions already in the chat, in the chat box. I think Professor Geetanjali Satyadas asked about, can the chemical from the plastic go against the current to freshwater fauna and flora or onto the land? So, Dr. Arul.
Yeah, thank you. The question, I go ahead in English. That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the plastic itself is not toxic. So plastic doesn't dissolve. That is a problem. It will remain for a long time, but it's not a toxic. It is not toxic. It doesn't dissolve. But when it is a very long time in the water, it can absorb toxic substances. And when then fish consume it, it can be an issue. That is 100 years of an issue. But it is not an immediate issue. The immediate issue what we have is chemicals. There are quite a lot of chemicals. Some are not toxic, some are toxic. The toxic chemicals diffuse in the water to a very limited area within the vicinity of the accident. As of now, that is about 3-4 kilometers north and south. That is from Coonghe at Negombo on the north, and in the south it is up to Mount Lavinia. That's what our observations and numerical modelings indicate. That area is banned for fishing. So the chemical containers or a submerged containers have to. There are attempts now. Though it is a southwest monsoon, the sea is very rough. We are trying our best to hold them out, and until they are hauled out of that submerged state, there will be leakages and problem in that limited area, not in other parts of the country.
Okay.
Thank you, Dinesh.
Okay, thank you, Arul. Again, this question to Dr. Sampath. After the accident, do we have statistics on number of different marine animals dead so far? From question from Yoga.
Yes, we are getting, because the wildlife department is documenting the number of carcasses that get reported. And as I mentioned, there's two problems. One is that, yes, sometimes my personal opinion is these numbers are in a way kind of a exaggeration, because there are, like, even in any time of the year, especially during this sort of cyclones, and during the southwestern monsoon period, if you go in any other year, you will see a certain number of dead animals. So we have to you have to exclude that normal background numbers that you would see in any year. And then you have to see what is the proportion that you see. So definitely there's a peak here. So I'm not denying that. So if you get, like, say 2 turtles per day, 1 dolphin per week, something like that as an average, then you see, you get 13, 14 carcasses per day. So that seems very unlikely in a normal day. So yes, there is a documentation process taking place, and the numbers are clearly higher than usual. Yes. The second issue is that what is the percentage of carcasses, dead animals coming into show as carcasses? That is what we don't know. We are working on we try to do a little bit of a modeling soon to get some sense of the number. But still the carcasses are coming. So it is monitoring and we try to get a sense out of it. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Really, do we have, before this disaster, do we have a data on usually how many number of these carcasses or these turtles coming to this kind of things?
Very patchy, very patchy. We have several turtle hatcheries, especially in the western coast and south, Rakava, Bundala, and then Koskoda area. And then there were several beach surveys done by IUCN and several other parties, but they are very patchy. We don't have a long-term monitoring system. We don't have a long-term awareness protocol for this sort of accidents. This is a good eye-opener. The agencies associated with this, agencies responsible for this has to be empowered. The resources has to be given. The labs has to be better funded and has to have the capacity, because if we claim that we are a maritime hub, we are an international shipping center, you know, we need to have infrastructure in place for this sort of a global scale accidents. Because it's like, you know, if you set up a hospital in say somewhere, think of like you set up a new hospital in say Java, right? So then you have to make sure that the neighboring community won't get sick by the you know, patients coming to the hospital. What if a patient die? You need to have a system mortuary and all. So, you know, you have to have infrastructure for a hospital. Similarly, if you have a prison, you have to have certain infrastructure. If you have a industrial park, you need to have infrastructure. Similarly, when you run very large international port, and now we have two, and we have Trinco Harbor, which is considered as one of the best natural harbors in the world. So we are, and then we are in the middle of one of the busiest global shipping routes in the world. So we are right in place for that. So what is, I think, lacking is a good laboratories and like empowering agencies like NARA, MIPA, Coast Conservation Authority department, and then even Wildlife Department to handle this sort of a large, much big incidents, because this certainly would not be the first, and this would not be the last. There were thousands and thousands of ships accidents happened across Sri Lankan waters, but increasingly, unlike old days about 50 years ago or 100 years ago, because we had the history of thousands and thousands of years of doing this business of shipping in the Silk Road. But increasingly, we are getting very toxic material coming in these ships. So more and more toxins are coming on these ships and passing. So if this sort of accidents happen in the future, I think we need to have a system, like baseline data is critical to get a good understanding. I think these are, I'm not saying no, we do have some data. We do have agencies. We do have people like Dr. Arul, fully dedicated and ready to go when needed. But how are we empowering them? Are we giving them the full freedom and full logistics they need? And are we using our university system, like places like where I live, work, our other agencies, do they have the clear understanding of what to do and what not to do and how to react? So these things, I think this is a good eye opener. We need to get the system in place for large accidents.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sampath. Actually, I had a question. What's the capacity development we need really for the country to manage in future such a disaster comes? I think you have addressed those things. So any other questions from the participants you can ask? There are 3 speakers in the forum.
There's a question on how about the disaster affected on fish consumption of the country.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I answer that question?
Yes, sure. I forgot.
Malkandi, this is a very good question. Based on my personal communication, it says 60% reduction had taken place due to this accident. So the fish consumption had reduced by about 60%. In fact, a multi-day fisher spend about 500,000-600,000 rupees and go out into the sea for a month and catch the fish in somewhere. You might have seen the news item recently, also the day before yesterday, about a few fishermen caught in the seashells. They were fishing in the seashells water. So they fish not in this area. They fish very far away from this area. This area is now prohibited for fishing, where we suspect there would be some impact. It is banned, prohibited for fishing. So in other parts of the waters, they are fishing it and they bring it, and they are now not able to sell the fish because of the hypocrisy and the conspiracy theories which are going on in the social media. I assure you, the fish which are bought at the market or available at the market are caught not in this water, which is suspected to have some toxic substances, some impact. So what is in the market are not caught at this prohibited zone, very far away from this zone. So they are safe for consumption. Thank you, Dinesh.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arul. Any other questions? So you can ask questions in Tamil or English by language. You can ask. So யாரும் கேள்வி தமிழ்ல கேட்கறதாலும் நீங்கள் கேட்கலாம். உங்களுக்குரிய விடை தர தயாரா இருக்கிறார்கள். Okay. Yeah. Dr. Murali, I have a question with you. I think so. This health impacts. So, what about initiating a cohort study? This is a good opportunity for, even though it's a disaster, this kind of studies to done. I think any initiatives you hear about. You talked about this hormonal impact and the physiological impacts of these chemicals, mainly BPA and things. So it's a good opportunity to study, because at Hiroshima, Nagasaki, or Bhopal or Chernobyl, they study a lot of things like this. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think that we have to first start with the baseline study. As I showed in that slides, that Sri Lanka was not included in the international study, how much daily BPA intake is taking place. That is the bisphenol A, which is a dangerous component. So I think that first we have to do some studies to assess how much bisphenol A is being consumed by the Sri Lankan consumers on daily basis. And then, of course, after doing that preliminary studies, and we can see the cohort studies as well. But I think that the evidence, whether it is due to the bisphenol A or other reasons, the diseases listed due to bisphenol A is increasing. All our statistics shows the cancer, the cardiovascular effects, and the subfertility is increasing. So that is very clear that the effects are there, but whether that is only due to the bisphenol A or some other pollutants, And we know that the air pollutants also can cause cardiovascular effect. That is another major area of concern. Now we see that the scientific evidence is coming up, and in fact, the air pollution is caused to be the estimations by the WHO is that more than 4,000 people in Sri Lanka annually die due to air pollution. So that is more than what the accidents cause. So therefore, I think that this is another area for a lot of research as well. But I think that we have to do the baseline studies first, kind of exploratory studies and lab studies. Then, of course, with that findings, then we can go for a cohort studies.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Murali. I think Dr. Arul, there's a question for you. What about eastern coastal impact of this ship disaster?
As of now, there is no impact whatsoever on the East Coast. The plastic which have been moving in the north and south, the north moves to the Gulf of Mannar and further west coast of India. The plastic which moves on the south goes further down to the Panandura, Gol and Matara. Then it disperses into the Arabian Sea and far off into the southern Indian Ocean. So as of now, there is no impact whatsoever because of the ship disaster on the East Coast. But the plastic is going to remain for a long time, for 500 years, because they are non-biodegradable. So with the same change of monsoon, at least during the northeast monsoon, that start in about November, the plastics may wash ashore on the East Coast. But as I said, the plastic is not toxic. So as of now, there is no impact whatsoever on the East Coast. Thank you, Tini.
Okay, maybe the thing you said no already, the current direction is both way is there, so in future it can go. Okay, there's another question for Dr. Arul.
And
okay,
may I add something, Dr. Arul? But the Sri Lanka dome, that when you have a relatively strong western wind, that some of the current could go towards south, towards east, and then could bend back and come down from along the east coast. So some of the carcasses that we see in the Batticaloa area, some attribute to the effects of this the dome effect. But anyway, as Dr. Arul pointed out, as of now we don't have any clear, we can't say it clearly, but I was wondering whether some of the carcasses that we see in Batticaloa area may have contributed, whether the Sri Lanka dome might have contributed this kind of beaching of some of these carcasses. But I have strong doubts that some other events also contributing. Internationally, this sort of things happen sometimes. They have shown in when there's a say large oil spill, when you do analysis of oil, in many occasions there have been reports of oil from other sources were also detected. So what had happened, like the ships that go past also dump their garbage and their oil and all onto that, because now you have a kind of a culprit, a common culprit, so other things get done. So I have a similar kind of a impression that some of these carcasses coming from all over the country suddenly would attribute to other things. But anyway, the effect of Sri Lanka dome might affect in the near future the eastern coast, isn't it, Dr. Arul?
Yeah, Dr. Sampath. As of now, yes.
Yeah, agree.
Maybe the Sri Lanka dome on the southeast coast, as you said, maybe have some slight impact as of now. But in the future, yes.
Okay, thank you.
The other question, maybe I would like to talk
Yeah.
about what about the acid rain due to chemicals? The MBRO, National Building Research Organization, is monitoring the air quality. In fact, I was told by the Department of Meteorology is that due to the burning of the ship, it is so heated up the lower air column. It has served as a hot spot. And the rainfall on 27th and around this area in Colombo and southern province is due to this hot spot created by this burning. And that rain has brought down almost all the heavy molecules which was in the air. And also the other one is the Yas cyclone, which was also operating during that time, had pulled all the air towards its northern Bay of Bengal. So maybe we are fortunate that most of the atmospheric pollutants are already removed. That's what the preliminary results indicates.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Arul. Again, another question. Was there an oil spill directly to sea water due to the ship accident?
Again, I can answer that. Dr. Sampath, do you want to say something?
Actually, yes, I'll just mention my observations and then Dr. Arul can elaborate. I agree with Dr. Arul on the acid rains and all. I think because of if it happened in a usual year, this could affect to our mountain forests, even in Murali, in areas in the western slope. But because of the Yas and and some of the impurities and the immediate rain, I think we don't have to worry too much about that. I do agree with him. And then oil, during the accident, we were also on the scene and try to get a sense of it. What we saw is mostly ash. We couldn't locate oil, and also based on lack of encounters of dead seabirds, I think if there were oil on water, it would be very few, because as I mentioned earlier, we were doing monitoring pelagic birds in the area a week before, and we counted about 30,000, actually 36,000 estimated pelagic birds in the area around like say between 8 to 10 nautical miles offshore in a belt flying from Arabian Sea along the Indian shore into Sri Lankan western shore and south. So they were flying from north to south about 8 to 10 nautical miles away from the shore, like large numbers, say 36,000. These are very rare kind of, most people would not even see them at all during their lifetime. So that kind of birds. So there were very high numbers of birds there, and they are all very hungry, very greedy on oil. So if there were like a substantial oil patch, we would see much higher, like dead pelagic birds. We didn't see any. So that is also something I'm more leaning towards saying that there wasn't like substantial patch of oil. Anyway, Dr. Arul, over to you.
Yes, there are some satellite images, very high resolution satellite images on social media, which there were satellite images from June 4th up to June 8th. So the June 4th satellite image shown 3.5 square kilometer of an oil patch. That is an oil slick. That is not an oil spill. If this is an oil seeping out from the crude oil or the bunker oil, the bunker oil is a high viscous and it is very semi-liquid and thick. But what appeared on the surface of the sea surface is very thin, filamentous, low viscous patch of oil. That may be most probably from the lubricants which is on the surface, or maybe in some containers there may be some lubricant which is left over after burning. In fact, the satellite images, also our observation on June 4th, it was a 3.5 square kilometer, had reduced the size of the patch within 5 days of time, that is on June 8th, to only 0.35 square kilometer. That is a 90% of reduction in the spread of oil patch. So there are some satellite images still indicating and showing some patches and things like that, or maybe no, or the algal bloom. Algal bloom also may take place, but as these observations and satellite images indicate, there is no oil spill. There was an oil patch that also naturally decayed, and now it has almost disappeared.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Arul and Dr. Sampath, for the nice presentation and the answers and clearing the doubts of the participants. So I think we almost passed the time now, 8:10. So now we can conclude the session, and so I can hand over to the Mr. Piratheeparajah, the Secretary for Northern Environmental Protection Society, for words of thanks.
Good evening, all of you. So it's my pleasure to have a vote of thanks on behalf of the Northern Environmental Protection Society. So first of all, we have to thank our president, Dr. Murali Vallipuranathan. He has arranged everything for the successfully conducting this webinar. So this is our first inaugural symposium. I hope we have successfully conducted, and more than 55 participants participate in this fruitful discussion. And we want to thank our speakers. Firstly, I would like to thank Dr. Arulananthan. Overview of the disaster in the Indian Ocean, and he has elaborated many geographical and oceanographical aspects of the disaster. And secondly, I would like to thank Dr. Sampath, Seneviratne, Senior Lecturer, Department of Environmental Science, University of Colombo, for expressing his view on the impact of expressible disaster on the flora and fauna of the marine society of our country. He has nicely elaborated his explanation on the impact of expressible disaster on the flora and fauna of our society or marine society. Thirdly, I would like to thank our moderator, Dr. Coonghe, Head and Senior Lecturer, Department of Community Medicine, Faculty of Medicine, University of Jaffna. He has successfully moderated the discussion session, and he has nicely translated some of the important. I would like to thank to the all the participants for they actively listen and actively participate in this nice discussion, and they have expressed their views, and they have expressed their questions from the speakers. So we are expecting future also this nice collaboration of the Northern Environmental Protection Society. We will have several discussions in future. So we will take many of the important environmental issues in our society, region, as well as the country, and the important aspects to create the awareness about the environmental issues among the societies, among the public. So our Northern Environmental Protection Society will be very actively involving in the future activities of our society. So finally, I would like to thank all the participants and all the speakers and our president and all the committee members for successfully conducting this inaugural symposium in a nice way. So thank you very much, everyone, for nice cooperating, and we are expecting you a nice cooperation and allow.
Okay, thank you so much and good night. See you.
Yeah, good night.